Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. It is my first time to be in this place, although I have been quite frequently appear in the IBAA study circle. And my name is Sagaraguna. My temple is in Germantown, Maryland, although we often stop by in Virginia temples, either Mahayana or Theravada. Several of the followers here are quite familiar with my recent presentation. I've been trying to finish a circle of 10 talks that talked about the so-called Samanera Panna, 10 question and answers for a legendary young boy who was ordained by the Buddha at a very, very young age that ordinarily should not be happening. But this novice got the ordination because he had demonstrated extraordinary wisdom. So far, I have covered 8 questions. Tonight, let's talk about question 9. And it would be imperative for you to at least refresh your memory about question 8. Last week, we talked about the Eightfold Noble Path. This is a very important precursor for question 9 and 10, in the sense that if you liken it to a curriculum, the Eightfold Noble Path is complete, but then it doesn't stop there. So question 9 talked about what kind of situation may happen after you've taken up the curriculum. And so here we are, the 9 questions. Essentially, ooh, my bad. It talks about 9 places, if you imagine that as place, because it may not be the physical place that you can get a hand on. Okay, the traditional translation would be 9 abodes, or 9 spheres, or realm, if you will, that different sentient beings may occupy that place. In the Pali tradition, the 9 abodes is quite straightforward. It starts from this present world, the so-called the realm of sense desires. We come to this world precisely because we have a craving. We want to have another existence. That pretty much defines the very first world, like here. Beings that are different in body and different in perception, such as human being, right this level. Down there, we have those having rebirth in the unfortunate destiny, and a little bit up there, but still within the realm of sense desire, we have some devas. Of course, in this particular realm, most beings are only beginning to take up the path. And many of them were not thinking about liberation, but instead, they were thinking more about having a good rebirth in good destiny. The Pali tradition, on top of this one, then built upon straightforwardly 8 stages of jhanic bliss, or 8 different achievements based on jhana meditation. Concentration, that is, not insight. Either depends on you are reading the Digha Nikaya or the Anguttara Nikaya. The way it is presented is somewhat different. Okay? And to me, to compare and contrast the differences would be pretty much miss the point. As I said earlier, the whole point here is about you have to link this particular question and answer to the Eightfold Noble Path. So whether or not you have achieved a certain stage of jhanic bliss is not the whole point. But the whole key starts from nourishing the roots, the asava, the tense, the influx, outflux. That would be the starting point for everyone to think about. So I will go through the 9 places or 9 abodes fairly quickly, but instead talk more about how do you nourish the roots, because that's what's more important. All right, so the first one, as I have just explained, is the realm of sense desires. That sentient beings in this particular place, although in the Mahayana tradition, I know that the past venerables in the Mahayana tradition would prefer to emphasize that, yes, humans in this particular world, although it is not perfect, we're not talking about number 1, the first sphere. Human has something extraordinary, outstanding quality in the sense that most humans, we are experiencing a life not entirely pleasant, but not completely suffering either. And because of that, we wouldn't be like the devas, completely enjoying their life, never thinking about liberation. And for those underneath in the unfortunate destiny, they were so busy suffering, they don't have time, they don't have the opportunity seeking for liberation either. And human, right in between, we have the right condition. That would be the Mahayana tradition. That having said, the Pali tradition will be emphasizing, look, no matter what kind of human you are, or you're underneath or just above, you do not go beyond the experiential reality from the 5 aggregates. That's the reality, okay? And that's where we start. So therefore, based on this nama rupa, and particularly interesting if you're reading the Digha Nikaya, and I believe Sutta number 15, okay? Mahanidana Sutta, talking about dependent origination. This is a very profound teaching among the entire Nikaya tradition, not just, I'll skip that point anyway. It first talks about why is it's called Maha. As you know, Maha means big, tremendous. And here, Maha indicating 3 things. It said, because we're talking about dependent origination, it said the origin of all phenomena is huge. Huge in what sense? 3 elements would incorporate everything. Nama, Rupa, Vijñana, consciousness. And so nothing, even for those, the so-called sense world, will not go beyond these 3 big elements. Physicality, mentality, consciousness. And this is where the Digha Nikaya and the Anguttara Nikaya vary a little bit. The Anguttara Nikaya straightforwardly go to meditation. You have to achieve the 8 stages of jhanic bliss based on the sense desires, of course, with desire to wanting to get rid of it, go beyond it. But the Digha Nikaya emphasizing, in addition to physicality and mentality, you have consciousness. And among the 9 abodes, consciousness only abide in 7 of them. The other 2, the hell, no beings want to stay there. So consciousness does not reside there. And another one, the very top of the jhanic bliss, is so happy. The beings do not want to leave. So the consciousness also do not reside there. Okay, that would be the difference. So one emphasizing the importance of meditation, the other emphasizing the causing factor, namely physicality, mentality, and consciousness. That would be the variation between the two. Right, but so far, between the two suttas, the first realm, the first abode, and the second abode pretty much the same. The first one, they were not looking at the liberation. At best, they were looking for rebirth in good destiny. And then the second abode, you will have, start from this point, try to cultivate your jhana. And this stage, there will be people who are different in body but equal in perception, in the sense that beings having rebirth in this abode would all have achieved the first jhana. Therefore, they equal in perception. And of course, if you stick to the ancient Indian Brahmic interpretation, they will give you a somewhat different rendering in the sense that those derived from the Brahman, okay, would essentially have the same perception. That's a different interpretation. But anyway, this would be the second abode that based on your first jhanic achievement. And also in this particular stage, according to the Digha Nikaya, a tremendous proportion of devas having rebirth here were gaining this rebirth because of their meditative achievement in metta. Okay, so they too experience a kind of bliss, but that bliss is somewhat different from the third Brahma-vihara. Okay, that's happiness. Whether that's physical or mental, that's a different matter. Okay, we're not dealing with that kind of difference here. But suffice to say that they mostly achieve the first jhanic achievement based on metta meditation. The third one, these are the kind of beings who are equal in body, different in perception, such as the radiant gods. This would be the type of beings who have achieved the second jhanic achievement. Their body, although somewhat similar to those devas in the second abode, also bright. Difference being that those in the second abode flash the light, okay, just like lightning, while the gods or the devas in this particular abode will be radiating constantly, okay, instead of flashing. Okay, that sort of, this is because they have different merit they have accumulated over time. And very enjoyable life, so much so many of them would not be thinking about liberation whatsoever. And the thing is that this kind of bliss, even with high concentration and jhanic achievement, would not stay constant, it will still change. Chances are, when the change occurs, they will drop directly from being a deva into the unfortunate destiny.
One observation I'd like to make here is,
yes,
it's interesting to note, you talk about the radiant gods, the Pali Sanskrit term deva is from the old Indo-European root div, meaning to shine. So the word deva itself means the shining ones. So this additional, this thing is a very interesting, almost the shining of the shining ones when you have the radiant
How
gods.
do you imagine how is the shining of the shining? Yes. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
In fact, the English word divinity and deity all come from the same deva.
Yeah. And obviously,
Alright.
it has to do with their meditation achievement.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the nimitta,
Sure.
brighter and brighter and
Absolutely,
brighter.
yeah.
Alright, so if you keep on meditating, and based on your aspiration, chances are you become yet another different type of being, equal in body and equal in perception, all illuminating gods. Like I said, the degree of difference has to do with their merit, and really, as far as I am concerned, in the sense that I am a meditator, I am a monk, okay, I am mostly interested in finding, achieving the liberation. This is a little bit far. Okay. I wouldn't imagine in my current life I can achieve that. But still, it would be a very useful understanding about what kind of beings are being produced after they have taken the path, or they should be taking the path. The fifth abode will be those beings. The translation here is not quite ideal. I have taken it from the website of Insight, Insight Wisdom, I believe, .org. It says that beings without perception and feeling, and place it at the fifth stage. Elsewhere, it might be placed at the seventh stage or eighth stage, depending on which sutra you're reading. But be that as it may, it doesn't matter. It says without perception and feeling is somewhat misleading. It is because you have cultivated your mind, and to achieve such a stage, you can transcend the influence of perception and feeling. In that sense, without perception and feeling, not being affected. Okay, so that having said, this next stage would give you a much clearer picture. The sixth abode would be those beings who, as you can see, several conditions. Through the complete overcoming of perception of matter, the disappearance of perception of sense reaction, this appearance is an intended result. It doesn't just disappear, okay? Because you have cultivated your mind to such an extent, the perception of sense reaction doesn't occur to you. Plus, the non-attention to perception to variety thinking. These are very subtle and almost finite variations, okay, that may happen to the meditator. Beings who are able to achieve this stage would be at least moving from the so-called the realm of forms into the realm of formless. As you can see, that will be the fifth jhanic bliss, already moving from the form world into the formless world. By this stage, the materiality in terms of its impact on the individual will be declining drastically. And what the Digha Nikaya have been emphasizing, the role of consciousness will be now gaining upper hand and significantly. So this is almost a critical turning point. Now again, if we were actually talking about the actual jhanic accomplishment, I would have to spend a lot of time on each of these abodes to link them with jhanic achievement. But our point, again, as I've indicated earlier, our point is not to talk about jhanic achievement. And if you think deeper, really, actually, I would encourage you to read the Digha Nikaya. That Anguttara Nikaya directly, straightforwardly talk about, first, you started from being in the sense-desired world, and then plus the 8 different jhanic achievement. And the next sutra jump to Nibbana, as if it gives you the impression, now I start from this sense desire world, and then as long as I achieve the 8 stages of jhanic accomplishment, I achieve Nibbana. If you think it that way, that would be totally wrong. That's not the story. Okay? So the Digha Nikaya actually tells you that, yes, you started from this sense desire world, but then your intention is that you want to jump outside of that cycle. And then it go on talk about mentality, physicality, and consciousness. So it will give you a better, more appropriate idea, okay, with better context, if you will. Not in the sense that it's wrong, but it has different emphasis. All right, so purely jhanic achievement will not lead you to liberation. It's the wisdom cultivated by insight that would guide you onto the right path. So don't get it wrong. This is why I would very hesitate to talk more about the jhanic achievement, because that would give you the impression that it seems that that's all you need, but it is not. All right, so the next stage, beings through complete overcoming the sphere of boundless space, thinking boundless is consciousness. You still sense that consciousness, although it's infinite. Because of this jhanic achievement, you will experience rebirth in the sphere of boundless consciousness. So far, I'm still following the Pali tradition. Although in the Mahayana tradition, they would also have somewhat different ways of describing this. But again, let's stick to one version, make it easier. Right? The next one, the 8th abode. Beings experiencing rebirth here, already quite rare, would have, through the complete overcoming of the sphere of boundless consciousness, thinking nothing is here. You might be a little bit bewildered, nothing. But then you still have that understanding, nothing is here. So that knowing nothing is here becomes the origin of that abode. You can still experience a rebirth. Although some of the non-Buddhist meditation practitioners in India, ancient as well as contemporary, who have actually experienced this stage of jhanic bliss, they would consider this as the end. The final stage, one of Buddha's teachers, before he achieved his enlightenment, actually achieved this stage of jhanic practice. Beings who would have completed the effort of overcoming the sphere of nothingness. So they have gone beyond even the notion that, like in better word, assuming you're still sensitive, okay, it's not a very precise description. Nothing. But then, you are not completely unconscious either. Okay? No matter how subtle the consciousness is, it's still something there. Therefore, it can only be described as neither perception nor non-perception. You still have perception. But really, that perception is a far cry from we generally describe as perceive of something in this current world. Okay? It will be very, very subtle. If it goes through stage by stage, you have climbed up from the first jhana into the second jhana and now into the 8th jhana. Just try to imagine it, how subtle it can be. If you ask me, sorry, I don't have that answer. I'm not there, okay? But use your imagination. The point here is, now we have roughly gone through the 9 stages. That in the Digha Nikaya, the final 8 and 9 will not be based on the jhanic achievement, but based on certain type of consciousness. They will call it realm somewhat differently. Those of you who can read the Chinese character, okay, this is a quick reference for you. For those of you who can understand English only, you can totally disregard this, okay? 九有停居 alright, all 9 stages. 然后七世住 okay, 有2个没有，对不对 right? The top jhanic achievement in the realm of form and the top jhanic achievement in the formless realm would not have any consciousness abiding in there. That would be the difference. Now again, if we deal with this tonight, I don't think even 2 hours or 3 hours will be enough. So this is just for your quick reference, so that you can you will know where to find the keywords. Okay. All right. This is what I want to emphasize, and you can see I have given you the reference, the original text, the English translation, and the Chinese translation from the Agama. Ananda, this is a dialogue between the Buddha and his attendant. That particular 7 stations of consciousness, plus the 2 spheres, or those 8 jhanic bliss, plus the sense, desires foundation, whatever you want to put it, they were all under the umbrella coverage of the 4 Noble Truths. For any meditator who has taken up the path, therefore the important thing is, based on your understanding of the Eightfold Noble Truth, based on your understanding of the 4 Noble Truths, you would take up the Eightfold Noble Path. And to achieve what? There is. Be actually experience, witness, and describe the origination, passing away, allure, drawbacks of the 7 stations of consciousness, and be able to escape from the 7 stations of consciousness and the 2 spheres. Why? A monk is liberated through lack of clinging. This is the key point from the Eightfold Noble Path and now to the 9 abodes of where sentient beings may abide. So the point is trying to achieve liberation, and yet it does not go beyond doctrinally the 4 Noble Truths and practically the Eightfold Noble Path. And at the individual level, you will have to be able to experience the rising, abiding, succession of all phenomena, experientially, that is. And this actually refers to insight meditation, although it is not described in such a way, but you should be able to infer from it. Any bhikkhu who are able to do that, according to Buddha, he is said to be a monk liberated through discernment. And those of you who are familiar with the Mahayana literature, you might want to emphasize that he is said to be. That is worthy of mentioning. Only said to be, because eventually nothing, no existence is permanent. So it can only said to be such an existence. All right, this is a more visual way to help you understand the 9 abodes of sentient beings. It started from karma locus instead of karma. This is karma, okay, indicating sense, desire, sphere. And then above that, the 5 material sphere, they still have somewhat visible, identifiable physical existence. Actually, the Digha Nikaya, according to commentary, and actually those really advanced meditators would tell you the same. Among the 9 abodes, probably only 2 are visible to human eyes. That would be the human world and the animal world. For some meditators, they'll be able to see those in the unfortunate destiny or even the devas, but that would be rare. Okay, for most common people, only 2 realms are visible. And then there is the so-called immaterial or formless sphere. They actually can, if you recall our very first question of the 9 question and answers for the Samanera, number 1, what is 1? All sentient beings can only survive on nutriments. So what about those formless sentient beings? What's their nutriment? Consciousness, certain type of consciousness. Okay, that would suffice. So that's a visual way of understanding it. It appears to be a hierarchy, but this is not an artificial hierarchy. It's based on your merit. It's based on your meditative accomplishment. And let me emphasize that in appearance, at least in accordance to the Digha Nikaya and the Anguttara Nikaya, it's describing the so-called concentration meditation instead of insight meditation. But if you look at, again, let's go back to the previous slide. If you read again very closely the concluding comment of that entire description, okay, it's actually referring to insight meditation. Okay. All right, so are they equal? Even though they appear to be under a hierarchy, are they equal or are they not equal? For those of you who are, let's say, achievement-oriented, you are thinking that, okay, I've been training myself so diligently, I want to know where I am. If you really think it that way, you're in the wrong place already. Okay, that's a very honest and useful advice, believe me. Okay, don't ever think it that way. So the question here is not seriously asking you to think about whether they're equal or not equal. Instead, the point is that forget about that. Okay, they are not equal in terms of their propensities. To start with, you have all kinds of different beings, even in the sense desires world. Okay, they have different propensity. Some are more inclined to accumulate merit simply for a better rebirth. Some will be seeking liberation. Some will want to become a Buddha, okay, following the Bodhisattva path. Be that as it may, they are not equal in that term, and also in terms of meditative accomplishment. That having said, the second statement listed a number of qualities that they would be equal, which is more important. Number 1, they're all sentient beings. Namely, like I just said, they would have to be survive or to sustain their existence on nutriments, be it physical or non-physical. They are sentient beings also in a sense. If we follow the Digha Nikaya, they will not go beyond the influence of 3 major elements: physicality, mentality, plus consciousness. Nothing go beyond that. The Mahayana tradition will simply jump to consciousness. They are equally heirs of their own actions. Karma, karma through. Nothing goes beyond that. Wherein all beings are also bounded by live-on nutriment. I cannot emphasize this more, okay? Because this is the starting point. On top of that, all forms of beings would this, okay, for serious meditators. You really need to write that down, okay? Place it on top of the desk. All forms of being would value their own existence, which should be equally respected and protected. Why do I need to emphasize this? I have read several commentaries, and this particular statement is drawn from Bhikkhu Bodhi. While interpreting that, what exactly did Buddha mean when he said that all beings are equal? This is the question. Obviously, they have different propensities. Obviously, they have different meditative accomplishment. So, what exactly did Buddha mean? All beings are equal. Here it is. No matter what, sentient beings all treasure their own existence. Those of you who are familiar with the Brahma Vihara meditation, okay, you know that. Why is it? Meta meditation always start from yourself. People who don't even love themselves would be unrealistic to expect them to love others. All sentient beings love their own existence, and that particular desire, namely treasure their own existence, should be equally respected. All beings are equal in that sense, right? So this is a very important point. We are not artificially saying that whether they are in the unfortunate realm or they are on top of that, the ninth or eighth jhanic achievement, they're still equal. No. But either they're at the bottom or on top. They are equal in the sense that they always treasure their own existence. And that's where all meditators can work on. All right, so all would have to follow the right path to gain the right view. And here, again, if you refresh your memory about what I talked about last night about the Eightfold Noble Path, it's not the conceptual or cognitive right view, but instead you have witnessed the rising and ceasing of all phenomena and be able to say that. So the right view, again, here I am drawing from commentaries. Right view as an achievement, the ending product of the Eightfold Noble Path, would be in nature, by nature, reflected. Meaning, say, I have seen what a bottle of water look like. Now, it's not present. But I've seen it, I can describe it. Nibbana, or the right view, would be precisely, I have experienced what Nibbana can be, with different degree, of course. Now, I am not in that state, but I will be able to describe that. That would be the so-called right view. So that kind of right view would be in its nature, reflected. Refreshing, recalling something you have experienced already. Okay, so this is a supplemental comment, a very useful supplement for you to think about the Eightfold Noble Path, especially thinking about what exactly is right view. All right, so they are equal in that sense, they are not equal in those sense. The Digha Nikaya also indicated, assuming you are reading this from the sense desire world, and you intend to achieve liberation through certain type of meditation, that would not be the only way, or let's say that would not be the only sufficient condition. Indeed, the sutra indicated there are at least 5 different occasions where liberation can be attained. Now, of course, each has its own different pretext. Number one, liberation can be attained when hearing the Dharma. Of course, the sutra took a long, really a lot of paragraphs indicating that under what particular situation hearing the Dharma can liberation be happening. You should be on the right teacher, and you are dependent on that teacher. You are actually living with that teacher, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So there are contexts. Second situation would be when teaching the Dharma to others. This is not limited to monastics. Lay followers, lay practitioners can also do the same thing, with the precondition that they do know, they do have the right understanding what Dharma is. Notice here that the Dharma, D, all in capital letter. That would be an indication of teachings directly transcended by the Buddha. For those of you who have missed my past presentations, let me use this opportunity to say that again. When you see Dharma, the D is small letter, lowercase. That indicates all phenomena. Okay? But when it's in capital letter D, it indicates the teaching from the Buddha. So here, I'll talk about teaching from the Buddha. That essentially include the sutra, the Vinaya, the Abhidhamma. Alright, so teaching the Dharma to others, that would be a good occasion, good opportunity to achieve liberation. When reciting the Dharma, reciting in the original Pali tradition would be you have memorized it, and then upon request, you can quickly withdraw that information from your database in the head without any text placing in front of you. That would be reciting. Okay, it's not just reading. So, if you have familiarized yourself so well that you can actually recite the Dharma, you can imagine that you are well versed in those teachings. The fourth situation, when reflecting about the Dharma, this can take place in the four foundations of mindfulness or for accomplishment of the mindfulness training, or in some other occasions that you are using the opportunity of reading the sutra and concentrating on reading it alone and nothing else as a way of meditating, then in that sense it could achieve certain degree of liberation. Finally, it would be the predominant and the preferred, most frequently taught way in the Pali tradition during meditation. One more extra remark on that meditation. In the Pali tradition, or say in early Buddhism, meditation was not differentiated between insight meditation and so-called concentration meditation. Okay? These two go hand in hand, both are needed. It was later on for instructional purposes that it would make sense to instruct them individually before you go on practice them. So try not to isolate the meditation here as solely for concentration or solely for insight. Instead, I would encourage you to think that a combination of the two. So during meditation, all types, you can also acquire the opportunity to gain liberation. References, a lot. The most relevant from the Digha Nikaya would be Sutta number 15. The Anguttara Nikaya, I would encourage you to read Book of the Ninth from Sutta number 34, 35, 36. Okay, at least these will be directly related to what I have just presented. I would strongly encourage you to read the original sutra because this terse presentation will not do justice to the profound teaching in the sutra. Again, what I want to emphasize is that so far we've been talking about a lot of things. They all boil down to one central idea, namely causality, dependent origination. This is what the Digha Nikaya been focusing on. The Abhidharma teaches us this. There are natural laws that govern the universe. We call it laws because try to find anything in the experiential world that exists without cause or without causes. You wouldn't be able to find one. That would be the natural law that governs the universe. Okay? Causes, consequences. Our mental and physical states, therefore, arise dependent on certain causes. For each individual, it varies, but it all arises depend on causes. On the one hand, this Namarupa, your physical existence plus its cognitive capability, this existence, on the one hand, would have to have some physical origin. Let's say from a fetus to now being a 40-year-old adult. It's a long process, relatively speaking. During this long 40 years, in addition to that single fetus, you would also need to have nutriment, nursing, caring, medical care. All these are intertwining conditions. They will create all kinds of different relationships for you to interact with. So conditioning and influencing relationship, they exist between these effects and their causes. All these constitute the individual strengths of the same road, namely causality. And for us, the most important thing is to nourishing the roots. The Eightfold Noble Path, last time I didn't have enough to emphasize this point. For some people somehow misunderstood the Eightfold Noble Path as an individual step that should be taken stage-wise, one after another, linearly. That's very misleading. No, you would be better off to think of the Eightfold Noble Path as a one integrated road, wherein the 8th step will be the individual strengths. Okay, so the better you can improve the individual strength, the stronger that end product road would become. Okay, and all that Eightfold Noble Path start from nourishing the roots. When you have shallow roots, the simile is that if you consider yourself as a plant, and when you start with a shallow root, that's the picture, that would be you, okay? And what if you have deep root, okay? Picture on the left, that would be you. And so, again, I'll have to wrap up a little bit. To attempt, statement number 2, to attempt to scale the higher stages of the path, it is essential at the outset, at the very beginning, to nourish the proper roots of the path, namely to cultivate the wholesome roots. There's a sutra talking about the 10 wholesome karma that all followers should be cultivating. And of course, the opposite, the 10 unwholesome karma, should be avoided or suppressed or eliminated. Okay. Sila usually will be referred to at this stage about how best you can nourish the roots. Take up the sila. It's not about rigidly, dogmatically asking you to not doing something. No. It's the more important aspect of Sila is to encourage you to actively cultivate your moral virtue. Those devas in the second abode, like I just mentioned, that those who have achieved high in metta meditation were precisely cultivating their moral virtue, metta, or compassion, loving kindness, whichever one you want to emphasize. Okay? Using the moral virtue as the basis of meditation, they become the ground, starting ground for all wisdom and higher achievement. This is also part of the reason why in the Pali tradition, the Brahma Vihara will either become the protective meditation or the fundamental meditation. To conclude, and this is a very practical advice for all meditators, according to the Buddhist principle of conditionality, the actualization of any given state, say the first abode, second abode, up to the ninth abode, the actualization of any given state is only possible through the actualization of its appropriate conditions. So instead of comparing the differences between the different levels of treatment, what you need to do is start taking the practice, cultivate the appropriate conditions. Yeah, that's what I would like to emphasize. And our next talk, my next talk, will be concluding the final question. It will be talking about precisely the 10 qualities after you have achieved arahantship. That will be the end product of this. Okay, so again, those of you who've been following up my presentations, it is very important you consider question 8, question 9, and question 10, which will be presented next week, all together, and then take the practice seriously. Right, that will conclude my presentation. Thank you.